At first I thought this can't be true. It's like some sort of prehistoric disaster movie. But it's real, all right. A gigantic volcano of steaming hot mud as far as the eye can see. It's already swamped a dozen villages on the Indonesian island of Java. And I mean swamped. Houses, factories, mosques, everything just swallowed up by this relentless tide. 40,000 people have been left homeless, without jobs, without hope. And the really infuriating thing is, geologists are convinced it's not a natural disaster. It's man-made, and the prime suspect is a big mining company with strong Australian connections. The world has never seen anything like this. A gargantuan fountain of mud gushing from the bowels of the earth. Some days the crater surges wildly, on other days it quietens down, but it never stops. Too thick to drain away, it's burying everything in its path. This is a tragedy of errors backed by Australian money. A story of cover-up and suffering that goes all the way to Indonesia's presidential palace. Look, our first glimpse, there it is.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge eruption.
Those houses would just be...
They are gone inside. I mean, they are just full
of mud.
360 degrees all around you for kilometres is mud.
Even for a top geologist, this site defies belief. Dr. Mark Tingay from Adelaide University couldn't wait to see the granddaddy of all mud flows on Indonesia's main island of Java, just west of Bali. It's so unpredictable, we're allowed just a few minutes at the crater.
It's just incredible the amount of mud and stuff that's coming out of here, all this fluid.
A boiling, bubbling cauldron about 100 metres across.
This is extraordinary.
This is amazing. This is certainly the biggest mud volcano crater I've ever seen, and I've seen some of the biggest natural ones in the world.
How hot is it, Mark?
This would be, as I say, the temperature ranges from about 70 to 100 degrees Celsius, so it's very, very hot. You wouldn't want to put your hand in it.
How long could this go for? How long could this mud keep spewing up from underneath us?
Well, geologically, mud volcanoes can go on for hundreds of thousands of years. But in terms of sort of man-made eruptions like this, the longest we've seen them go for is over 20 years.
No one knows how it will end, but we do know how it started. With the mining company's stuff-up. Here's what happened. This time last year, they were exploring for natural gas just to the right of the plume of steam. Around here were rice paddies and villages. You can see the roof of the local mosque poking up through the mud just over there. Now, when the drilling got to nearly 3 kilometres under the earth, it struck a high pressure zone, and the result was catastrophic.
When they were drilling this well, they've encountered this chamber, or this very large reservoir of highly pressured water. They've lost control there. That water started to come up the borehole and then got into another shallower level, brought up, captured all this mud, eroded all this mud and clay as it's come, and then erupted to the surface. So about 200 metres away from where they were drilling.
The world's top experts agree this was straight out human error. Most likely a failure to shore up the walls of the borehole with a protective casing.
We're 90% certain that the drilling is the trigger for this event.
So, lives lost, thousands of lives ruined through ineptitude.
Ineptitude's a pretty strong word, Peter. That's a very hard one because we don't know what the conditions were when they were actually drilling. However, certainly the only reason you don't set casing is to cut costs, because it takes time to set casing and time is money when you're drilling.
When it started a year ago, it was a small geyser of mud and steam in a rice paddy. After a few days though, all hell broke loose, causing a frantic exodus. Levee banks and dams built in great haste collapsed just as quickly. A year later, 12 villages are buried, 20 factories, roads and rice fields are inundated, and nearly 40,000 people displaced.
And we're not talking a trickle of mud here, we're talking something with enormous power and force behind it, aren't we?
I mean, the mud is coming up at a great pressure, rates of 100,000 cubic metres a day. Now, in sort of layman's terms, that's the equivalent of over 100 Olympic swimming pools a day. You know, it's enough to sort of fill up a standard house in just a few minutes, your living room in 30 seconds.
Disasters on this scale normally attract immediate global aid, but not here.
Hello? Terima kasih.
The new homeless invent ways to survive. To see the mud, there's an unofficial toll. 50 cents to pass and more to park, but can you blame them? Here, everyone's fending for themselves, but it's hard, hard work.
This is all to get to that factory that's deep in mud, to plunder all the lights, the electrical boxes, all the fittings in there. Then they'll go and sell them and make a quid so they can live day to day.
Today's haul is pretty good and should yield a good price. After this, they went next door and took away the roof.
Sawaji, how quickly did the mud come into your home?
Pertama kali kurang lebih 15 menit.
In the first step was 15 minutes, our villages was flooded.
Sawaji and his family's tiny house was amongst the first to go, and they lost everything.
I was trying to save my children first and then my stuff later.
Sawaji lost his job too, as a construction worker. He took us to his last project, repairing a highway, which is now the road to nowhere, buried forever.
Who do you blame now?
Ini sangat juga pengeboran.
This is the mistake of the drilling company.
Lapindo.
Lapindo?
Lapindo, an Indonesian mining company, is public enemy #1. It's scrawled everywhere you look, and it's written across the furious faces in a nearby shelter for the homeless.
Ladies and gentlemen, who do you blame for the situation you are in?
Lapindo, susah.
Now this is where the waters really get muddy. Lapindo, the mining company, says we're not to blame. And wait for this. They say all this destruction was triggered by an earthquake in Yogyakarta, 300 kilometres that way, not by their drilling rig, which was only 200 metres away.
Did your company cut corners in the drilling process?
Oh no, yeah, that's one is not true.
Despite mounting evidence, Lapindo boss Imam Augustino refuses to budge from the company line that this was a natural disaster.
Do you believe it was triggered by the earthquake?
This triggered by the tectonic activities, not only the earthquake, but it is tectonic activities.
These tectonic activities, you mean the earthquake in Yogyakarta?
Yeah.
It's difficult for a geologist like myself to believe that an earthquake 200 kilometres away and 2 days prior to the accident would have caused such an event. We would have only had shock waves the equivalent of about Richter scale 2 at the site where the eruption took place. And now that's the equivalent of the vibration you get through your feet when you stand next to a road and a truck goes by. So it's a very, very light, not a strong vibration by any means.
This calamity has cost lives as well as livelihoods. Late last year, 13 people died when the mud engulfed a gas pipeline, causing a huge explosion. With little doubt that human error caused all this mayhem, East Java Police began investigating. They've gathered a mountain of evidence so far, and they're still going.
Are you one of the 13 suspects being investigated by the police?
Yeah, it is.
How does it feel living with that over your head?
Of course, it's very hard. Yeah.
You could go to jail.
Yes, yeah.
With tempers at boiling point, the Indonesian government ordered Lapindo to buy every block of land, every home and every factory as compensation. But get this, sitting beside President Yudhoyono in Cabinet as Welfare Minister is Abrizal Bakri, a billionaire businessman whose empire includes Lapindo. Recently, Mr Bakri has been trying to offload the company, and those owed money suspect he's trying to offload his liability as well.
Let me make sense of why I think you wanted to sell it to an offshore company. It was so you could have a company with no assets, no responsibility, so you could wash your hands of the problem.
Mm-hmm. That's not true.
So everything I'm saying isn't true.
I don't say it's not true, but it's not 100% correct.
Lapindo has begun paying compensation, but there's a catch. People must first prove they own their home and land.
As soon as possible, whenever they can provide the certificate of land, they go to the government agencies, make verification, and we pay them.
You know as well as I do that most of these people cannot supply a certificate of ownership of their land or their home because it was swallowed up by the mud.
No, this is the case.
They had 15 minutes to escape.
No, who said that, 15 minutes?
Spare a thought too for the Australian investors who stood to make a killing, but instead are losing millions on the ill-fated gas well. Santos, the Adelaide-based mining giant, had an 18% slice of the action and is now lumped with 18% of the losses. Santos Corporate Vice President is Martin Eames.
How much have you paid out?
We've paid out $30 million.
And how much do you intend to pay out?
Well, we've made a provision in our accounts for $89 million.
Is Santos paying out for the good of the displaced people or because you want to keep the Indonesian government on side?
Well, we're paying out because we feel it's the right thing to do, first and foremost, and part of that is because of the impact on the people. You know, our decision on paying the money that we have done is simply because we feel that is the right thing to do.
Since there's no taming the flow of mud, what on earth to do with it? A new drainage channel to relieve the massive build-up is just a trickle compared with what's spewing out of the ground. What's really frightening, though, is the scientist's prediction. The giant underground chasm left behind could cave in, sucking everything down with it.
You are saying that the Earth could gobble up the whole lot?
Now, what we really fear that might happen is that that could collapse very, very quickly. That all the water and all the soil that's been pulled out of the ground could cause the ground above the surface to collapse. Tens of meters, 20, 30 meters down in just a few seconds. And that would be catastrophic.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.